this as well. So the first thing we're going to look at is identifying the key contracts. So last week we focused on the S&P 500, namely here. We've got Wall Street, which we've got here as well. And we've got the NASDAQ as well. So some of these I've already pre-charted. Some of them I'm going to do with you as well. Okay. So first and foremost, if we scroll out, again, like we did last week, and obviously every other session that we do here at Educator Trade, we lay out kind of what's happening. Okay. Generally speaking, what we do is then we look at the higher time frames just to give us rationale to kind of look at or look for. Okay. So these red levels over the last few weeks have acted as key price levels. Okay. So we've seen here price action being resisted. We've got this massive break to the upside into 47.15. We've topped out, price actions come back. We held this level last week and price actions kind of meandering on trying to grind higher. Okay. So I suppose the first thing is we look at, regardless of the contract, okay, how do you identify those levels? Purely through higher time frame technical analysis. Okay. So what we look at is we use our technical analysis to identify larger levels at play. And then in terms of the actual opening session, in terms of the cash open, then we isolate the price action on the smaller durations. So we're very much looking at an approach where we look at all aspects together. Okay, so we identify the charts initially, giving us a kind of a more broader outlook as to what's happening. And then the secondary element there is we isolate that price action more specifically pre-market and geared towards the open specifically. All right. So if we've just focused on the S&P 500 just for today, okay, what are we seeing here initially? Okay, so if we scroll down to the time frames and we kind of magnify the price action as a whole, okay, I suppose the main thing here we're looking at is identifying these levels. So this area here up here around 47.10, 47.07, roughly, I'm just going to kind of move it up ever so slightly. This is obviously a key higher time frame level, okay, so up here, obviously key higher time frame level. What's happening? The price action's obviously rejecting. We've since seen a sell-off last week, which we covered in our Zooms. And what's happening from them? These levels that we've identified last week, notice how price actions come down. We've got initial bounce. What's happened? We've seen consolidation. And then over the last couple of days, again, price actions rallied higher back into this 4680, 4700 level that we've alluded to. Okay. So what we're doing is we're basically giving ourselves a much broader understanding of the price action, what's actually taking place, and being able to, I suppose, then being able to nitpick and look at things in a bit more detail. All right. Hopefully that makes sense. But again, any questions and anything there, let me know. So again, what are we looking at then beyond that? So we've looked at kind of the 1 hour, 4 hour daily to give us that broader perspective. And gearing now into the open at 2:30, we're isolating the price action. We're looking at things in a bit more detail. Okay. So gearing towards 2:30 here. Okay. We can see very, very evidently if we zoom in, this 1 hour level, okay, price actions coming down, we're holding above wick rejections. Price actions coming down, multiple wick rejections, we're consolidating, and price actions remaining to hold above. So in theory, what we're kind of thinking here is, right, short term, we've identified this short term level of interest here in yellow. And the likelihood is that if price action is going to significantly break lower, we would need to see a break on the higher time frames, i.e. the 1 hour, for price action to break through. Okay, so you'd be looking for price action to close underneath this yellow level. And that would then say, right, all these times price actions obviously come down and we've bounced, we've wick rejected and we've bounced. But on this occasion, then we're looking to see, can price action close underneath to continue pushing lower? Okay, and that fundamentally is so important with identifying the price action, both on the higher time frames and also on the shorter time frames towards the opens where we get that increased volatility. Okay, so gearing towards that then, as we look at the price action, let's see on the 15s, what are we seeing? Okay, so on the 15 minutes, we're seeing price action again. If we zoom out ever so slightly, price action coming down, rejecting, bouncing, coming down this morning pre-market, rejecting off this level here, roughly speaking around about 46.77, 46.75, and price action has since remained within this area of interest. Okay, so it's the big factors here now into 2:30. Identifying this price action is right. On the higher time frames, we've got this level. On the 1 hour, we have this level, and we can also see the price action here in the 15s. So it's not just a case here of taking a buy or taking a sell off a 2:30 open. Okay, we're looking at the price action more broadly beyond that. Okay, we're looking at yes, the initial impetus in terms of what's happening as the market's open, but we're assessing the price action as it develops through the course of the trading session. Okay, so this is where it's a good idea for us to use both approaches, both the shorter time frame and the medium time frame, because it allows us to assess the price action through the day as it develops in a rationalized sense. Okay, now given that we're just a couple of minutes away from the open, what are we looking at then since about 8:30, 9 o'clock this morning? Okay, so it's now going on 2:30 in the open. It's 2:27, 3 minutes from the open. So we saw price action rallied into this 46.90 level. We've since come back to this 46.78, and price action is now consolidating. So my perspective here today into the open over the next, not just the next 5-10 minutes specifically, but beyond that, is assessing the price action, how we open at this level here around 46.77. Okay, so the rhetoric here, if you were looking at our group this morning, I'm not sure if you're in any of their discussion groups or community groups, but our big discussion point this morning is regarding Fed Powell. Okay, he's expected to name a success or a potential replacement / the next leader of the FOMC. And there's been numerous individuals daily from the San Francisco Fed. We've got Powell as well. We've got Leo Brainard. Okay, so there's a lot of talk in our discussion groups at the moment. Who's going to be next to assume control of the FOMC? Will it be Powell? Will he remain in charge? Or will there be someone else appointed? And obviously looking at the rationalities of how these fundamental events can affect the markets. Okay, so looking at the price action into the open today, we're still very much consolidated. Now you've just kind of asked the question there, is there a way you back test before entering a trade? No. So what I look at is key components here is multi-time frame analysis, being able to break down the charts in a matter of fact. Okay, secondly, then identifying levels of interest. Okay, so what we've done here is through the multi-time frames, we're identifying our specific levels that we're looking out for, and then we're observing the price action accordingly. Are we breaking through it? Are we holding a specific area on a specific time frame? And we're mirroring it up with kind of rationalities that we're looking at. Okay, so it's not just a case of saying, well, if price action breaks below this yellow level, we sell. Okay, that's not what we're saying at all. We're basically saying that we need to observe the price action, react how it's performing at a specific level of interest, and then determining, is this a viable bullish scenario where price action is trying to break out and continue moving higher, or is it maybe a reversal or maybe a bearish break where price action is looking to break through a specific support level to continue moving lower. Okay, and that's kind of the key fundamental element here. Okay. Now, when we look at the price action into the open at 2:30, we have seen initial bullish impulse. Okay, so the first couple of minutes, what have we seen? Well, we saw price action consolidate, and at 2:30, price action has rallied 3-4 points. Okay, so overall, you'd be saying there's not much movement so far in the first minute or so, but there's still much to decide whether price action is going to break through. So this is why I normally say is, when the markets open at 2:30 air time in the UK, we kind of give the markets 2 or 3 minutes to breathe. Why? Because what's actually happening at 2:30, all these executions to buy and sell different stocks are being executed, and this is what's given the sharp up and down in the indices, because there's many millions of orders coming in different stocks across all the markets for specific UK stocks, and that's what's driving this price up and down in a sharp sense over a matter of a couple of minutes. So what we generally say is, as a rule of thumb, giving the markets the first kind of 2-3 minutes to breathe is a good thing, because it allows the markets to execute all those transactions. And then if the price starts moving up or starts moving down, that's generally the trend direction that we're kind of looking for. Okay. Now, when you factor in other kind of concepts like what we've done here with our yellow levels, identifying levels of price action, using our multiple time frames, we're using all these as confluences, i.e., we want to make sure that if we take a setup or if we take a trade, we have much supporting evidence to support that trade for us to buy or sell a particular contract. Okay, for us, obviously we focus on the indices, and accordingly then we're watching the price action on those indices specifically. All right, so given that now, right, just say price action is now opened up with the first kind of one minute or so. So price action has obviously moved higher, we've come back down. price action now is attempting to break through. So what you'd nearly be saying here is if price action breaks through these EMAs over the next minute or two, the likelihood is that we're probably going to see more bullish momentum. Okay, so you even see it there. The next minute price action very bullish. The third minute price action is trying to break through. So I'll be keeping an eye on the price action over the next minute or so. If we break through here, I will probably look for a buying opportunity. What will I be looking for realistically? Well, on this one here, I'll be looking for price action using your multiple timeframes again. Where can we look for price action to potentially break? Well, initially you'd be looking for price action to break through these impulses this morning at 46.90, but you'd be looking for price action to kick on through that, break through that level that we've identified this morning and continue pushing higher. Okay. So again, looking at the minute, price action initially bullish, came back down, price action is now trying to break through. So the next minute or two is going to be structurally very, very key, okay? Because not alone are we using our multiple timeframes and our levels, we're also incorporating some EMAs, okay? So EMAs, the ones I use are 13 in blue, 50 in green, 200 in red, and purple is the 800. So these 4 EMAs collectively adds more confluences to potentially taking a trade. Okay, what are we seeing? Well, on this one here, we're seeing price action hold this yellow level or just above it. We're seeing price action on the shorter time frames break through these EMAs. So we want to make sure then that if price action breaks through these EMAs, can we hold above? Okay, that kind of generates the idea of a potential change in the trend direction. All right. So I'm just going to get my order ready. Okay. So on this one here, from my perspective, 0.1 is the equivalent of around about £25 or $25 per point, depending on the kind of the account currency you use. So on this one here, I'm going to go for a stop at 46.80. I'm going to go for a TP at 4,700, and I'm just going to wait for this minute to close. Okay. So given that price action has broken through, we have wick rejected, or is trying to wick reject. So we've broken through, we've pulled back to test this wick rejection here. So the likelihood is that if price action kind of breaks through above, it's going to continue moving higher. So I'm just going to give it another second or so just to kind of read the price action, because we've had that wick rejection now, and I'm going to take a wee short on this. Okay, so what I'm looking at now is I'm looking for the price action to continue moving higher. Okay, so I've entered there at around about 46.85. My stop loss is 46.80, so I've roughly a 5-point stop on the S&P. Okay. Now, if we looked at all time frames, okay, so what are we identifying? Well, we identify the crossover and the price action on the shorter time frames, and it's starting to move higher. But if we looked at the 1 hour, just to give us some insight as to why we took that long, well, we've seen, as we said, remember what we said, all these rejections from this key level, and we're starting to see the price action now move. So my goal here would be for the price action to break those near-term highs this morning that we've alluded to around 46.90 and continue trying to move higher now. Okay, why is that? Because on the open today, if you looked at the price action, we've consolidated, we got initial spike, we got a little bit of a pullback, and now price action's going higher. Okay, so on this trade, I risked about $100 or £100. No, it's actually dollar related account. So I've gone in with about $100 risk. Okay, $125. So this is roughly about a 1% risk. At the moment, its floating profit is about $115, $120. So almost 1-to-1. So normally speaking, if we're risking $100 and it equates to 5 points, we want to be looking at getting kind of 3 times that back. So if we're risking 5 points, we want to be looking for 15. If we're risking $100, we want to be looking for kind of 250, 300 minimum. Now at the moment, we're kind of floating around $165, which again shows that our risk has been in check. Our analysis from top down right through to the shorter term timeframes has been quite good. And overall, the price action has been going the way we anticipated. Now, at this present time, given that I'm now kind of 1.5% floating profit, I'm going to move my stop loss to break even, okay? And I'm going to let this trade run, okay? So the scenario here now is that, right, if price action starts to fail up here at 46.95, 46.96, the likelihood is that it's going to come back down and it's going to take us out of break even, okay? So from initial outset, right, there was 2 scenarios that was going to happen. Either we were going to take a 1% loss or approximately $100 loss, or we were going to make 3% and we were going to make $300 profit, okay? Roughly speaking, there were 2 scenarios. Now, because I'm managing my trade accordingly now, 2 scenarios now it's going to happen on the revision, okay? 1 is price action is going to come back down and take me out of break even, or 2, price action is going to go the way we expect and make that 3%. So effectively what I've done here is I've ensured now that if price action does, for whatever reason, potentially fall back and come back down to where we were at the open at 230, what this means is that I'm out of break even. Okay, I've not suffered any loss, I've not suffered any gain, but the likelihood is that my account is actually protected. Okay, so if there was a rapid change in momentum or there was a piece of news come out, my stop loss is protecting me, that it's minimizing the downside risk. All right. Now I just want to make sure, Daniel, have you any questions there so far, mate? At all? Is everything clear? Anything you want to ask at all? Please do feel free. All right. So again, reiterating the fact of what we said there earlier on. Okay, it's not just a case of watching the price action through the first 10 or 15 minutes of the trading session. We go beyond that. Okay, we look at the price action through the course of the trading session, because for all intents and purposes, today or a lot of days, there mightn't potentially be a clear structure or clear price action move on the open. And we're fortunate today that the price action has been fairly clear. Okay, so this is why it's important to not just look at the price action on a specific open, but we look, as day traders, we look at the price action through the course of the trading session. All right. I'm just going to check the comments. Just observing, crystal clear. Perfect. Fantastic. Well, look, if you have any questions at all, please do feel free. So as a rule of thumb, generally speaking, given that I've kind of taken this position, I'll kind of keep an eye on this now for the next few minutes. Okay. So at the moment now we're floating at about $240. So again, if you're risking 1% or 1.25%, you're roughly at a risk reward now of 1 to 2. Okay. So if we elected to take profit now, let's say, we're making twice the amount of what we risked. Okay, so one of the key kind of fundamental secrets with trading is that if you're risking 100 quid and that's your 1% risk, you want to make sure you're getting back more than what you risked. Okay, because that makes the trade actually worth physically taking. Now, as we look at this now, we're starting to see price action come back a little bit, but that's fine because we've goals in mind, we've targets that we've identified, and we're watching the price action accordingly. All right, now if we go back up to the 1 hour, what are we seeing now on kind of the medium term? Okay, we're starting to see price action rally off these levels. So these price action zones that we've identified, and price action now is continuing to tick higher. Okay, same again, if we looked at the Wall Street or the NASDAQ, what are we seeing? Well, we've from 230, we've seen NASDAQ is up approximately 100 points or maybe a little bit more. And Wall Street, US 30, Dow Jones Industrial Average is up some 70 points. So you'd arguably say that the best performing contract today was, if you're comparing the Dow Jones and the NASDAQ, you would say the NASDAQ is, because the NASDAQ is actually up more than the Dow Jones. But we also have to look at consideration to the S&P. Okay, so the S&P rallied about 13 points. And in general terms, 1 point on the S&P is roughly equates to around about, I think it's around about 7 points in Wall Street when you factor in the volatility. So if you were looking at that today, 13 by 7 is 100 and what 101 or 102 points. Okay, so that would make today the trade that we took in the S&P would have been a better trade than that of what was potentially taken on Wall Street. Why? Because in relevant terms, the price action on the S&P, even though it only moved 13 points, it was more volatile for the S&P to move 13 points than it was for Wall Street to move 60 points. Okay, so this is a very, very good option this morning, and we're back up now. We're continuing to grind higher. So as we look at the price action now through the course of the session, we'll be continuing to see, can price action get back into this 47 level and hit our 3% target? If that hits our 3% target, I'll be pretty much done for the day. Now, I will look at the price action again for fundamentals. We're not just technical traders. We take in the fundamentals. We take in all aspects, okay? Because we've got data, we've got fundamentals, and we've got technical analysis. We encompass all of these aspects universally and collectively to give us a more broader understanding as to what's actually happening in the markets. All right. So that's pretty much it so far. So we've ran this call now for roughly almost 20 minutes. So we did our preparation beforehand. We are pretty good analysis. We had broken it down. Trades now running in profit. So from my perspective now, that's my job done now. I just have to keep an eye on the price action as we progress through the trading session. All right. Daniel, have you any questions there at all? Don't think you do, but if you do, I'm more than happy to try and answer if I can. Okay, Fair enough. Okay. Well, look, what we'll do there is I'm going to probably leave this now. Okay. But over the course of now, not just 2:45 into 3 o'clock and beyond, I'll be continuing to kind of assess the price action, watch the price action accordingly to see if we get that continued movement from what we got at the open, or if price action is going to make a material reversal, or we see a break of a potential area. All right. Well, look, Daniel, that's really good. That's really like I'm probably the big kind of technical guy when it comes to educated trade. So anything technically related in terms of levels, price action, how we go about laying out charts. If you have any questions at all, please do feel free to liaise. I'm not sure who your point. I think it was James DeGarris. I think was your the liaison within educated trade. So feel free to get on to James if you want anything else. We're absolutely more than if I can help any more, absolutely my pleasure. All right. But yeah, still look beyond that. What as I said, I'll be continuing to watch the price action into the open at 2:45 to into 3 p.m. and more broadly beyond that. Okay, through the trading session, watching the price action, being able to identify things, rationalize things. Okay, so having clearly defined structure. So we've got structure, we've got patience, we've got discipline. Having specific rationalities for taking the trade is also uniquely very important, because otherwise it stops the likes of over trading, taking too many trades, taking maybe trades which maybe aren't worth taking. Okay, so when we incorporate all these collective things that we've kind of discussed today, it weeds out all the ineffective or inefficient trades, and it allows us to pick trades where we can actually deem we can potentially get something out of. Now, look, this trade isn't closed, so this profit here at the moment isn't realized. So the goal would be to see if price action can continue moving higher through the next 15 minutes and beyond into the session, and to see if price action can hit this 4700 target and take out my TP level. All right. So look, Daniel, pleasure as always. I know you were on the call last week as well. But again, look, if there's anything we can do to help at all, please do not hesitate to contact us. All right. Okay, so Daniel, I'm going to leave it there. I'm just going to stop the recording.